Hello, comrades. I'm Aleksandr Buzgalin, chief editor of the journal Alternatives Russia. And of course, we will discuss question of the events in Belarus. This is a dramatic and very important contradiction, which is not only a local contradiction, this is event of the world scale. Why? First of all, because Belarus is on the bridge between West and East, and because this is a center of contradictions between different geopolitical, social, economic forces. I do not have any special or secret information about these events, but I want to talk about reasons of the contradictions, reasons of the confrontations, and first of all, economic and social class reasons. First of all, I want to stress that Belarus system is a very specific model of capitalism. This is a paternalistic bureaucratic system where private business, private capital is under the control of the state, and state is both exploitator of the ordinary people, system which dominate ordinary people, suppress them, but from another side, this is paternalistic system which was oriented on the development of the internal home industry, agriculture, infrastructure, and some social protection. This is a very important contradiction of Belarus capitalism. And this is a specific feature of this country, not as Russia or Ukraine or other post-Soviet countries, where huge capital oligarchs are main economic, social, and political force, and state is in some aspects servant, in many aspects servant of the big oligarch capital. In Belarus, situation is another, as I said. Because of that, Belarus society had very deep internal contradictions, but they were not open. It was much more peaceful until now situation in this country for many decades, more than 20 years. And the reason, as I said, paternalistic, not only capitalist and bureaucratic functions of Belarus state and the whole pyramid of the power, where Lukashenko is not master, where Lukashenko is symbol of this system. Who are representatives of opposition, main force of opposition to Lukashenko? Until last days, among leaders of this opposition were mainly neoliberal, pro-neoliberal people, mainly representatives of small business, of freelancers, representatives of capital, private capital, who are not in the unity with bureaucratic state and bureaucratic apparatus. And these people, together with a big part of population who has pro-Western orientation because of the mode of life, generally speaking, market capitalist mode of life, these people were against Lukashenko, let's say, Lukashenko model of capitalism in Belarus. And until now, it was main force who were protesting. At the beginning, it was main force which protesting against a situation which took place after presidential elections. I do not have any special information about results of these elections because there are a lot of really untruth information from both sides. And this is not only official falsifications, there are a lot of falsifications which are generated by Western media, internet channels, Telegram channels, and so on. So I think that reality doesn't know anybody. But before mass violence, which took place during last days, I think that majority of population, when it was necessary to make choice, either paternalistic bureaucratic capitalism represented by Lukashenko or neoliberal model similar with Ukrainian model, majority of ordinary people were supporters of Lukashenko relatively peaceful but dusty system of capitalism. Now situation changed. But before, I want to stress that bureaucratic model of capitalism was very contradictory inside, not in the open forms. Why? Mainly because it was both political and economic oppression of ordinary people, of workers, of teachers, of peasants, of absolute majority of Belarus population. From another side, as I said, Belarus had the so-called elite part of population, or sometimes in the West is used category middle class. But in Belarus, the same by the way in Russia and so on, in post-Soviet countries, so-called middle class is not people who has middle position, who has average incomes, average living conditions. So-called middle class includes mainly people, 15, maximum 20% of people who has living standards similar with living standards of poor West European countries or rich East European countries like Czech Republic or something like, or Italy. This is reality. And this so-called middle class has really very deep confrontation with Lukashenko model of power. I want to stress also that young generation which were receiving, better to say, education based on the US style textbooks everywhere in economic management, finance. It was US textbooks based on neoclassical approach in philosophy, in psychology, in politology. Everywhere it was neoliberal model of education, and of course it was generated neoliberal model of thinking. And also typical illusions of former Soviet people that if you are part of the European Union or if you are part of the European civilization, you have next day the same standards of life, like not in even Poland, or of course not like in Ukraine, but like in Austria or something like that. So this is the picture. But after very violent and active actions of force, military, not military forces, I don't know even how to say it, special police forces, let's use this word. Actions of special police forces after violence and victims, after all this, majority of Belarus population understood that Lukashenko is thinking about his power, and paternalistic functions of this state is not main function. Main function is bureaucratic conservation of power, bureaucratic conservation of incomes, privileges, and so on. And because of that, I think every hour, not every day, the number of people who are against this system of power is growing. And this is important to take into the consideration. Lukashenko had some chances after first protest actions. He had some chances to say, yes, I understand that situation is very contradictory, that there is a real opposition, that there are very deep contradictions and problems. Our bureaucratic system made a lot of mistakes. I will use very mild formula, not to say crimes against people. And we will make real changes with participation of ordinary people on the basis of real democracy, not power of neoliberals as form of democracy, but on the basis of some steps towards real democracy. He had these chances to improve his situation, but he did not realize these chances. Opposition was more smart, more developed, and had really very big financial, material, intellectual, organizational support from the West. This is not decisive factor, not main factor of protest, but very important factor, and very negative factor, because the result of actions of opposition, if situation is like it is now, and today is August 14th, if the situation is the same, results of actions of opposition will be growth of neoliberal trend. And finally, if Lukashenko will lose the power, real masters of Belarus will be neoliberal forces based on the NATO organization and global capital, which is behind on the foundation of NATO organization. This is also a reality. Until now, we do not have real social political force which can be alternative to both neoliberal opposition and Lukashenko bureaucratic paternalistic capitalism. What about ordinary Belarus people? Majority of them are still silent, and protest is in some cities. As far as strikes, we have, in Russia, we have very different information about events as far as strikes is concerned. Some people, including my colleagues, says that this is only meetings, only rallies, not real strikes, and nothing like occupation strikes. Some information is more optimistic about real participation of workers, engineers, teachers, and doctors in struggle against Lukashenko system. So I think that growth of violence from Lukashenko's side can lead to the real protest actions of the workers and real strikes. And it can be very positive factor. But unfortunately, Belarus doesn't have really strong trade unions, left political organizations who can be motor, ideological representative, political representatives of this struggle of ordinary Belarus people. I think that my estimation is that until now, it's noon of August 14th, I want to remind, situation is following. Majority of people now are protesting not mainly against Lukashenko, but protesting against violence and of power from ordinary people. Main problem of Lukashenko system, people are tired to be only puppets in the hands of bureaucracies. They want to be subject of political, ideological, cultural process. They want to be citizens of the state, not semi-slaves of bureaucratic paternalistic system. And this feeling is transforming to the material force. And this force is the main driving force of opposition, of actions of opposition now. I have hopes for peaceful negotiations as model of changes of situation. And I have some hopes that Lukashenko and his apparatus will understand necessity to change the system and to make radical social, first of all, social oriented, really democratic oriented on the interests of people, reforms in the country. But this is not very strong hopes, I am honest. The most probable variant is growth of tension and contradictions. Even if Lukashenko will have victory in this struggle, it will be bad victory. It will be only, how to say, partial result of contradictions. Contradictions will not be solved, and they will be inside, and they will be even more dangerous and more strong. But if a peaceful situation will be the result of these confrontations, we will have hopes for more progressive changes. Because now, if Lukashenko will lose the power, the most probable variant is a neoliberal model, very similar with situation in modern Ukraine, which is definitely not more progressive than Lukashenko model in really all aspects. This is not very optimistic estimation of the situation, but there is one very optimistic and very important lesson of this event, which we can conclude even now, even in this moment. People are not only slaves and puppets of any regime, including bureaucratic regimes and paternalistic regimes. And post-Soviet space has very big potential of the real struggle against capitalism in any form, neoliberal form, bureaucratic paternalistic form, in any form. People are tired everywhere, in Belarus, in Ukraine, in Russia. People are tired to be in a situation of puppets in the hands of bureaucracy or in the hands of the oligarch or in the hands of neoliberal mass media and political manipulators. People are ready for real actions. And Belarus, country which was very, how to say, peaceful until now, Belarus showed that this is reality. People are ready for real social protest, real social actions. And this is very positive lesson and result of the protest. So let's be in touch. I hope to participate in this dialogue in the future. I'm ready to give information to any channels, any YouTube channels, any websites, any newspapers, any persons, as much as I can, as much as I know, I will do. So let's be in touch. It was Aleksandr Buzgalin, Journal Alternatives. You can write us on the email conf.buzgalin@mail.ru. conf.buzgalin@mail.ru, Russia. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye, comrades. Goodbye, colleagues.